AmpGuard. This is Casca here with How To AmpGuard, and we're going to be doing a series of seam finishes for you over the next few weeks. With me here is our dear cameraman Coda.
Hello.
And also our special guest, my sewing machine, Pete, whom I love dearly. And here we go. This week's seam finish will be bound seams. Okay, first folks, we're going to do bound seams. Now, first I want to tell you a little bit of how I've got this set up. On my top thread, I have a bright orange thread just so you guys can see it. And on the bottom thread, a nice light green one. Again, just so you can see it. For bound seams, you can generally do just a straight stitch. I tend to do mine at a 2mm length. Some of these I will adjust down or up, and I'll let you know which way I'm doing that. I tend to switch back and forth between empirical and metric systems. I apologize in advance for that. I'm more comfortable with metric, but I've been trying to convert all my stuff here to empirical just for you guys. So I'm sorry if I tend to do things both ways. So bear with me on that. Now, for a bound seam, these things are very useful because they're very clean, they're highly flexible, and that means unlike flat-felled or French seams, they're great for the arm side and for any sort of tight curve. They can also be used very decoratively. Now, for a bound seam, you only need a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is also nice if you cut your seam allowances a little too short. A bound seam is a great way to cut corners and conserve fabric. So, how you start a bound seam is you simply just stitch your two fabrics together, wrong sides together, like you would normally do. I'm not going to bother with knotting or back stitching or anything like that for this video, because I'm just giving you examples. But again, just so you can clearly see the colors, so you can see which side's right and which side's front and which side's back as far as the things go. Now, for a bound seam, what you would do is you would have bias tape. Now, I prefer making my own bias tape because that way I can get custom colors, and I will cover how to make bias tape in a future video. Now, if you decide to use store-bought bias tape, I recommend using a Tricot bias. This is not the normal cotton bias tape that you would find. It's a lot lighter weight, and it's much, much better for doing bound seams. And what you would do, I'm going to slide Pete out of the way here, just so I can show you, is you open up your bias, or if you have Tricot, you just wrap it around. You insert, let me see if I can get it in the cameras here. You insert it nice and simply into the seam here, and then fold it down. Now, you can pin if you like pinning. I tend to cheat a lot. I don't recommend it until you get very comfortable with sewing. But just put it in and close it up. Now, let me put Pete back in here. There we go. And the nice thing about this is you just come along, and if you notice, I'm going to be stitching in about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and just stitch right down again. And because it is a bias tape, this sort of binding is very flexible, and it, like I said, can handle curves very well. If you use a contrasting color, you can do it, use this very decoratively as well. You don't necessarily have to put it wrong sides together. You could put it right sides together and use it to accent your piece if you wanted to. And of course, once you've got everything sewn into place, you would open up your seam and press it flat. So you have a nice flat seam. Now the downside to this is it is a little bit bulkier than a lot of seams you see out there, but it is incredibly durable. And of course, if you want extra durability, instead of just doing that little straight stitch like I did before I put my binding on, you can of course overcast it or zigzag it, and that'll also give it a little bit extra stability as well. Well, that's this week's seam finish for you folks. See you next week.